Hello and welcome to CANNAMAntv. My name is Connor McLeod. In this very special interview, I speak with comedian, actor and cannabis pioneer, Tommy Chong. In this interview, we discuss the difference in the global cannabis landscape since Tommy's career began, Up in Smoke, the creation of the film and the cultural influence it has had since, Tommy's time in prison, consciousness, and the nature of God and spirituality. Make sure to like and subscribe, and if you'd like to support the channel further, please join me on Patreon, where you could help to build a stronger cannabis media platform for only £3 a month. Now then, let's talk cannabis. Mr. Tommy Chong, this is an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you. And you're calling from I'm calling you at the UK?
That's right, I'm in Scotland.
Scotland!
Yeah.
Oh, my. I haven't been there yet, but I'm part Scottish. I got a Gilchrist in my background, in my family.
Good man. You can't hear that, but there'll be some subscribers cheering right now, so that's good. How are you doing today? You okay?
I'm doing great, man. This is my first call, so...
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. In comparison to when essentially you started your cannabis career, totally different landscape altogether. Everybody's talking about cannabis and you know, I mean, how is that comparable to when you actually begun even Up in Smoke?
Well, think about it. You know, we started before cell phones. Yeah. We started before internet. You know, we were back in the day when, you know, you had to wait for the movie. You know? and now we're in the age of knowledge. You know, see, back in the day, they were still trying to tell people, convince people that that marijuana or cannabis was a drug, an evil drug that led you to be addicted to the real drugs. You see, that was a little trip there that kind of amazed me, because they used to, you know, knock us all the time for being pro pot. But they could never come up with anything better than it leads to harder drugs. Yeah. You know, well, Coca-Cola leads to harder drugs. Yeah. Water leads to harder drugs. You know, all sorts of things lead to danger. Like you can get killed in a car crash if you're driving 100 miles an hour in a 30 mile an hour zone. But they never really answered the fact that intelligent people on the planet, like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the great basketball player, he used cannabis and he prolonged his playing career by at least 7 years, probably 10 years, by being healthy, by staying healthy. And he only used it because of his migraine headaches. But it has an effect on you in so many ways. More than anything, it affects the brain, and it causes the brain to get sharper, you know, to get more detail oriented. And what it does to the brain, it forces the brain out of living in the past or living in the future, fearful of the future, or you know, sad for the past. Cannabis puts you right in the present. And that's where you, for the most part, that's where you want to be, you know.
That's what essentially meditative states are, isn't it? You know, it's the embracement of the in the moment. I think Bob Marley said the same thing when he was talking about cannabis makes you look at yourself, to your real self.
Yes. Yeah. And that's basically, that's why we're here. And plus, if you study it like I have, you'll find it was the beginning of organized religion. You know, that's what bound people together in a spiritual mode. You know, and that's why the Native Americans consider the pipe to be their church, to be their sacred place of worship, was the pipe. And that was, and you know, it wasn't because of the tobacco. No. You know, it was that cannabis product. You know, and you know, I always used to laugh because back in the day, you know, when the cowboys and Indians were running rampant on our screens, you know, on every movie, and we went through that phase, you know. Well, there was also a phase. In fact, they wrote songs about this thing called local weed,
right?
You know, and local weed, the animals liked it, the horses liked it, every animal on the planet loves local weed. Yeah. Because they get a buzz off it like we did, you know, we do.
Yeah.
And so they would glamorize it, you know, that horse must have been eating that local weed, or they would talk about people indulging in that local weed, but in a very comedic, almost like a passive, non-aggressive manner.
Yeah.
And so we've had that throughout our history, but it's that fearful state that countries get in, and I think a lot of it has to do with the way we govern ourselves. You see, the election process starts off like a good idea,
yeah,
but then the corrupt people, you know, the people know how to corrupt everything, find a way, you know, like a termite, to get in there and just chew away at the foundations of our government. And I think what happens, you get fearful because you're always thinking about being elected as opposed to ruling. And then if you're a dictator, you're always fearful of being assassinated, because that's how you got in there. you know. So I think, personally, I think that it's up to the entertainment world, up to the movie world to push our product, or push our healthy lifestyle, because that's what's been going on, you know, from my point of view anyway. You know, because I've had people, you know, they always, why did you get into it? How did you what made you gravitate toward the weed? And it was two things, really. It was music. It was the jazz world, because my jazz heroes, they all started with pot anyway. They graduated a little bit to the rougher, the harder drugs, but even then, they you know, the Coltrane's, the Miles Davis, you know, they showed us the dangers of the hard drugs.
Yeah. And
they showed us the joy of the marijuana, of the pot. But they also showed, and then they showed us the dangers of what happens when you go into that other world, you know. So we're the world is, we're on the verge, but you know what? We've always been on the verge.
Yeah. It's funny because you said that obviously it's down to the entertainment world, and you essentially pioneered it with things like Up in Smoke. And what was it like when you were actually obviously writing that? Because that kind of contradicts the notion that cannabis makes people lazy and lethargic. I mean, you wrote and directed and acted in that movie. What was it like at the time? Did you feel pressure making it? And what was the actual response culturally?
Well, you know, it was the first real docudrama, because there was no script. There was like there was nobody. There was no one in charge of making sure that what we were doing was proper. You know, that's why you have a script. You have a script, so the money people or the government or whatever can look at it and decide, you know, what they feel is either good for the people or harmful for the people. Well, we never had a script. And what we did, we made it up as we went along. I mean, we never had a clear vision of what, first of all, did we want to make a movie? I was the one that wanted to make a movie.
Right.
I got tired of going to touring to Australia every year, and then missing summer here in LA, and then catching winter in Australia. And so we did that for 2 years, and then they wanted us to go again for the third year, because that's a problem with agents. They just want that steady money coming in. Yeah. They don't care about anything else, And so I was the one that wanted to do a movie. And so then Lou Adler, our producer, he got on board. He's, well, I'll make the deal. I'll get the money for you. Again, the reason the movie was shot for such a low budget, we never had a movie to budget, really. I mean, I wrote what is now called like an outline.
Right.
And so we got the big bones, like the pot truck, the truck made out of marijuana. That was written. I wrote that in the treatment. They're called treatments. And but everything else was ad-libbed, kind of. And I'll give credit to Lou Adler, because he brought in the straight side, the cops. He brought in Stadenko, and he brought in good actors, like Stacy Keach. And then he was responsible for the scene at the border with the nuns. Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you the truth. I could never write anything that corny. And there is really a talent for that kind of humor.
Yeah.
I don't have it, but Lou and the boys, they did, and it was a perfect balance.
Yeah.
I looked at it because I tend to get a little bit hipper and just worry about the Cheech and Chong part of it, and the cops were, they were there, but Lou and Lou Lombardo, the other producer, that made movies with what's his name? I can't think of his name. Oh, Robert Altman. They were the ones that were they balanced my craziness and Cheech's craziness, and so it's a nice balance. And then plus Lou was a movie producer, and so that's why he wanted the movie to be Cheech and Chong's greatest hits, right. Because we were one of the few comic groups that had rock and roll records out, music, and not spoofs. Not all were spoofs. Some were like legitimate, like Up in Smoke or Earache My Eye, songs that where other bands covered our tunes. So we were legitimate music guys as well, and that really helped because Lou, he made sure it was almost Up in Smoke is like you could almost call it a musical. Yeah. Because there's always music. Yeah. And that's what we use the car chase scenes, to really showcase the tunes, Lost Due to Incompetence. That's a big underground hit with the music world right across the spectrum. So I Up in Smoke, we snuck it in. Right. By the time anybody of authority would stop it, it was too late. Yeah. Because we bypassed all those guys. We showed. What was really funny. What made the movie was, to me, was the ending, because there was no ending. Yeah. We kept trucking on. You see, well, Lou and Lombardo and the other side, they actually wrote an ending, right? Because they were trained, when they do a movie, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. Mm. And so they were conflicted. They didn't want the movie to end, sad or serious, but they didn't know how end the movie. And so what they did, they wrote a very standard way to end a lot of things, like the Wizard of Oz comes to mind.
Right.
You know, where it was all a dream.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
She wakes up, she's home. Oh, it was all a dream. So Lou and them, they actually wrote and filmed the ending without me.
Oh, I see.
Without me, yeah. Up until the ending, I was in on every shot, you know, and then, except for the cops. The cops, that was their thing, you know. They did that, but toward the end of the movie, and when they were shooting the ending, they never let me in the set to see what was going on, because, you know, being the writer, I would really have the last say. Yeah. Because they would say, what do you think? I said, well, why don't we do this? Or, you know, why don't we change that? Or why don't we do this? You know, sometimes, other times it would be great, but a lot of times it'd be, but I had the final say. Yeah. But the ending, they kept me out, you know. Now, in some respects, they weren't really dissing me, but they were. Yeah. you know, because my personality, because I don't consider myself anything of what I've done. Like, I don't consider myself a comedian. I can do comedy. I don't consider myself a guitar player, yet I've played guitar all my life. Yeah. I don't consider myself an actor, although I've acted in a bunch of movies. So, you know what I'm saying? I don't like say, this is who I am, this is what I want to do, you know. Yeah. In fact, I'm still kind of looking. Yeah. I give the same answer that when they say, what's your favorite strain? Yeah. You know, well, back in the day, my favorite strain was weed. That was my favorite strain. Yeah. Not coke, not heroin, weed. Yeah. And so now you've got all these strains, and to be honest with you, some might taste a little different, and some might feel a little different, but because of the way I smoke, I don't do a lot. I do one or two tokes. Boom, that's it. Yeah. Because I like to be in control. Yeah. I don't want that to be in control of me.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny you should say that, Tommy, actually, because I'm in a similar circumstance where I've actually, people have tolerance breaks, obviously, but I've actually went about 3 or 4 weeks without smoking, and it was only maybe 2 or 3 nights ago when I just had a pipe and I had like the first 2 tokes off it, and that was it. And then what I've noticed is that you kind of forget the sensations of what cannabis feels like when you overindulge. And I think that there's one of I would say the only negative, one of them I'd say is that for cannabis, a lot of the time the cannabis community are like, if you're not overindulging, you don't respect the plant. And I think it's quite the opposite. You should kind of respect it to the point where your use should be minimal, and it should be a respectful interaction.
Well, you see how the mental power comes into play there. You see, because so many people consider life as a race. Yeah. You know, I got to get there first. I got to have the biggest. I got to have the most. You know, oh, I did it. You know, in fact, Lou Adler had a club called the Top of the Rocks, and their motto on their matches that they gave away free was, "Living well is the best revenge."
Yeah, that's a good one.
And I looked at that because I was involved. I thought I was a little closer involved to the Roxy and the Top of the Rocks than I was, because that's what actually separated me and Lou Adler. You know, because with me, I always shared, because you're a musician. You keep your music all to yourself. You share it. Yeah. With other people. You know, if the guitar sounds better not playing, then you don't play. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not about me. Yeah. And so when Lou, but the Roxy, I had own clubs. That's how Cheech and I got started. I had was involved with an after hours jazz club, and then I got given a supper club, which I turned into Vancouver's first topless bar.
Nice.
and, and so I kind of knew the club business, you know.
Yeah.
And so when Lou opened the Roxy, I thought for sure that I was going to be included. You know, what do you think? At least that, you know, because I had some really good suggestions. I was excluded, just like I was excluded at the end of Up in Smoke.
Right.
So what happened? Let me finish the Up in Smoke story. So they shot their ending, and then they showed it to the brass at Paramount. Well, and me and Cheech and everybody at the same time. This is our this is our what we think how the movie should end. Right. And so they played the whole thing. It was for to their credit, it was a rough cut, but they showed it when you show anything to executives, it better be close to what you want to finish. Because you can only judge what you see. You can't judge what's not there. You know, you can't get inside the editor's mind. So anyway, it was a disaster. The screening was a disaster, and people filed by us. We're sitting there, and it felt like they were viewing a corpse. You know? And they'd walk by and just give us that, oh God, you know, this isn't going to be released. And so then we had a meeting at the Roxy, and that's when I told Lou, I said, and everybody that listened, that we have to reshoot the ending. Ending sucks. And they said, and everybody agreed. And at least they wanted to hear me, because the ending did suck. There's no doubt about it. They had Stacy Keach coming back as a cop, looking in the window like a uniform. It just made no sense whatsoever of what we just saw. None whatsoever. It was, I don't know. I guess it was people that had never made a movie thinking, well, this will work. You know, thinking more budget than thinking creative. You know, because I never thought budget. You know, I always see what we want to have on the screen. Boom, that's what we got to get on there. And so it came down to, okay, what are we going to shoot? And so I had to tell Lou at the time. It was kind of sad because it was a breakup. I said, I have to direct this myself. That was the only time where I said, I'm going to be the director. You know, and I did. And the shoot was so easy. It took a half a day.
Right.
It basically was just Cheech and I riding in the car. Saying, hey, we did pretty good last night, man. Yeah, we should do this for a living. You know, we should put a band together. Yeah, we should do. And then I hand him a little piece of hash that I had burning on it, because that's the other thing I wanted to do. I wanted to show all the different weed ways of smoking, and so we had all the different weed in the movie, and then at the end, a little piece of hash on a pin, you know? and it drops off in Cheech's crotch, and of course we made a big deal out of it, and then the band fills up with smoke again, and then the sound comes on, and then we ride off into the sunset, and it was more of a message. It was like our culture. It wasn't ending. It was just beginning. It was just like, it was like America discovered that Chicanos are funny, and they're not dangerous. They're American. They're musicians, and the rich Jewish kid, which I was. You know, it doesn't matter about money or station. You know, he wants to be a drummer. He has to get down on the street with everybody else, and so that combination, and it was a combination of Lou Adler, Cheech and Chong, and Lou Lombardo, and Stacy Keach, and Strother Martin, all these people coming together and then doing their thing. You know, and the proof's in the pudding.
Yeah,
you know?
it really is. I mean, think how long that is, like a cult classic. That will never be topped in the cannabis community when it comes to like production value and just the basis of like highlighting the culture itself. Well, funny when you talked about the hash, I remember, I think one of the funniest scenes in it is when Cheech hands you a joint and it's like a wee twig and you're like, what is this? And you hand him a huge, massive cube, and I love that moment.
Well, that was our rule. In fact, I passed that rule on to the Wolf of Wall Street, the guy, Jordan Belfort.
Yeah.
I was in prison with him, and he was started writing. I was writing my memoirs, and he started writing a book. And at first he just copied Tom Wolfe, Bonfires of the Vanities. And then, so I told him, I told him the truth. You can only tell the truth to very talented people. You can't tell the truth to everybody. You have to pick and choose. Well, he was a genius. So I said, okay, the truth is you haven't written anything, and he got a little upset. Well, he's got this photographic memory. See, he can copy, he can remember what you said, I said, and verbatim.
Yeah.
And, that's the kind of sharp brain he had. And so I put him in the right direction. And so I told him, when you're writing, exaggeration is the key. You want the biggest and the best, because you're using imagination. And so that's what we did with the joint. And not hand a little joint. We wanted that the biggest joint ever. And what kills me is that people emulated. It was a movie, dude. You don't want to waste all that. Look how much burns up just when you light it.
Yeah, like a 5-ounce joint.
Yeah.
It's good. It's actually good that you're saying that about you could tell talented people the truth. There's a quote that came to mind, and I think I'll probably butcher it, but it's something like you shouldn't tell the truth to it's probably the wrong word, but to dumb people because they'll hate you. Tell the truth to wise people because they'll respect you.
Yes. Exactly. Well, the Bible says you don't throw the pearls before the swine.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and that's what it is. Well, yeah, there's so many people on the planet. They're here. Everybody's here for a reason. Mm-hmm. We need each other.
Yeah.
Just like when Trump come along. So many people were afraid of him. Still are. Mm-hmm. Me, I embraced Trump because I saw that we needed a Trump. Yeah. Because we had an Obama, and we live in a physical world, and so for every action there's a reaction. Yeah. And in order to have an Obama, you need a Trump. Mm-hmm. In order to get a Biden, you need a Trump. Right. You need something to go, oh, this guy's crazy. Okay, well, this guy is not crazy. Well, let's vote for the not crazy guy.
It's actually quite good, that, Tommy Chunk, because I think that to myself. It's like when you says that we're all here for a reason, and I'm a big fan of like archetypes and like collective consciousness and stuff like this. And sometimes I think to myself, like I think Bill Hicks has got a great quote when he says that we're all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. And I think that it comes through people's behavior, because I think it's like the butterfly effect. You can bang into somebody and you can have a profound impact on their life, and then they have a profound impact on 10 people's lives. And before you know it, just by meeting one person, you've actually changed the landscape of a town, without even knowing it. But I think we're so orientated in our own lives that we often lose that sense of understanding. And I think things like cannabis and psychedelics, they lift the veil of physicality. They allow us to see things that ordinarily would be constricted by essentially the mechanics of society,
Yeah, well, they connect us with our true self, you see, and it's always every spiritual book ever written, they all say the same thing. Yeah, like when the Muslims say there is only one God, they're correct. When the Jews say there's only one God, they're also correct. Yeah. The only difference is it's not your God. Yeah. It's our God. Yeah. and it's our Father, just like the Christian prayer, our Father, yeah, who art in heaven. not on earth, in heaven.
Yeah.
Hallowed be thy name, just a name. And that's what I've been talking to people when I do cameos and that, and people get upset. Well, I learned that just by thinking of God in a pure state,
yeah,
not in a like evil is a state, but thinking of God changes my life.
Yeah.
And I use them every day, because as I get older, I get more senile, and I need help.
Yeah.
I need help.
Yeah.
Like I invoke God constantly. When I walk into a room, I always say, "Okay, God, why am I here?" Because 2 seconds ago, I knew why I was going to this room. Yeah. But when I get there, I got so many choices, and my mind is always somewhere else, that I have to ask God, why am I here? And I always get the answer. If I can't think of a name, like people now, they Google it. Yeah. Who was in that movie? They Google it. I just ask God silently. And sometimes I get the answer. Not all the time, but sometimes. And so what I found out is that everybody on the planet really believes the same thing, but because we're not evolved to the point where we can realize, the pettiness that comes in there, which is fear, which is ignorance. Pure ignorance is just fear, fear of the unknown. Now, you're in school, like I was in school. I couldn't hack school because I couldn't get by math. My mind would wander. My mind would wander off. Just as they were teaching me that one component, that one thing that you needed to learn in order to understand algebra, sometimes my mind would just reject it. Mainly because of who I become. Because I couldn't become a math teacher and become who I am. I had to be who I am, realizing that, okay, that's not my field. That's not my path. I got to go on this path. And if you compare the two paths, like most people, they consider, including myself, they consider a higher education to be the ultimate, beautiful. Okay. Now I've got a son that he went to university. He got a degree in percussion, music, a degree. Now, but I'm still supporting him. Yeah. Because it's been my privilege to know some of the greatest guitar players on earth. Yeah. Like I once had a time with Wes Montgomery where I literally, everybody in the club was passed out except me. and this is in Vancouver. and Wes said, he was kind enough to do a concert for this little jazz club. And I ended up being, like I said, the only guy that was awake, and he had to do another set. And so we talked through half his set. We just sat and chatted because I'm a guitar player. Yeah. And then Wes said, "Oh, I better play." And then he played for me. I was the only guy there awake. And he, at the time, was considered the world's best guitar player. So financially, my son never picked the right profession. Yeah. But socially, or more mentally, he did. Yeah. He's very happy now. He teaches music to families in Canada, Northwest Canada, on a secluded area on Vancouver Island called Tofino, and it's furthest west you can get, and it's it's like furthest from society or from civilization that you can get.
That sounds nice. I like that.
but he's very, very, very happy. And we went and visited him. We the whole family, we can't wait to get up there to visit him, because but it's a lifestyle, you see. It's a lifestyle. And the thing is, now I can afford for my son to be a jazz musician. Yeah. And to me, that's on me. That's on me. That's how I want to help him or help anybody in the family, not just my family, but people that are in need, yeah. because when you do achieve success, it's meaningless unless you're sharing it with somebody,
I fully understand.
That's what that can you imagine what's his name? The richest man in the world. Bezos. Bezos is one of them. Just got divorced.
Yeah.
The other richest guy,
Bill Gates. Yeah.
Microsoft Bill Gates, just got divorced. Yeah. You would think that when you're the richest person in the world, you could at least keep a marriage together.
There's a great quote.
How hard is that? How hard is that?
Exactly.
Yeah. What are you going to do? Find somebody else? No, you were with this woman, partner, while you were coming up.
Yeah.
Now you're there. Why do you have to split? And it's because what it is neglect.
Yeah.
And ego.
Yeah.
And power. Yeah. You got this power all of a sudden, and that's what ruins it. It's life. You know what? Life is a game. It really is a game. And like all games, you don't know the ending until the ending. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's always a chance. You can always win, or you can always lose. Right up to the very end. And if you realize that, then happiness is there, because happiness really is knowing. Knowing. Like the end of the movie. It could be sad, it could be happy, it could be surprising, whatever it is, but Yeah. So you're not afraid or you're not anxious. You know the ending. So when you get all that wealth and you don't have your spirituality together, then actually the wealth becomes meaningless. Yeah. I mean, you buy a new car. How long does that last?
Yeah.
I'm there. I remember my life when I couldn't. The only thing I could afford was a scooter, and the only reason I bought a scooter was that I could afford the gas. It only cost me maybe a couple of bucks a week in gas. And so that's what Cheech and I did. We rode around in the scooter going from club to club. We couldn't afford a car because you got to get insurance. You got to do a whole lot of things with the car.
Yeah.
But with a scooter, you jump on and jump off.
There's actually, there's actually a fantastic quote, Tommy, that's exactly pertinent to that. And it's like, I think it's Bob Marley, I think, that said it. And he's, some people are so poor that all they have is money.
Yeah.
And it's just perfect.
No, I'm going to tell you something. You're closer to God than you ever need to be. And God is a thought away. I always remember that. And the scriptures always say too that you, like a double-minded man will always fail. You can't be double-minded. You can't have two thoughts in your mind at the same time. And so if you keep your thoughts on God, what happens? It's like when they built the pyramids. Those pyramids would have been dissolved years ago if it wasn't for the fact that they used exact mathematics to get the right proportion.
Yeah.
Enable the weight to be distributed equally, and it wasn't they didn't win the first time.
Yeah.
There were archaeologists that were looking for plans of the pyramids, and they could never find plans of the pyramids. And then one wise archaeologist realized the plans were right in front of them. The plans were the little pyramids that were built in front of the big pyramids.
Right.
And so what they would do, they build a little pyramid and they see how it worked. And if that worked fine, then they would go on and build the big pyramids exactly to the to the dimensions of the little pyramid.
Yeah.
So there always has been a plan. And what the reason the pyramids stayed is because of the knowledge of the mathematics of the thing, which never changes.
Yeah.
This is a physical world, and when you look at the stars, like Shatner just came back from space, whoa, it was great. I love they spend the billions the way they spend their money. We'll go up in space for 6 minutes and be weightless. Woo, this is great. What do you think? Oh, it was awesome. It's better to send a monkey with a computer,
Yeah.
and then you come back with some facts, But anyway, it's a human experience, and what you realize how powerful God is. There's nothing gets you closer to God than your mind. Mm-hmm. That's how close you are to God. And when I say your mind on God, God has created everything, including eternity. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a hell of a thing. How do you create eternity? Because eternity has always been here. Yeah. Eternal, it's always been here. So there's no creating there. Yeah. It's always there. This is the power that you and I are directly in contact with. Yeah. Along with every other living being on this planet. And we are so connected. And why are we here? Nothing would exist without someone there to enjoy it. Yeah. See, if you got art and no one's there to look at it, is it really there? Yeah. No, it's not, because no one is there to enjoy it. Mm-hmm. We are beholders. And we also, at the same time, we are also learning how to become God, because that's our evolution. We will evolve until we are so pure that it's not space travel. It's we'll be traveling in dimensions, because the human body was not meant to be in space. The human body was meant to observe people in space, and sure, some of us, and a lot of there's a sacrifice that comes with being the guinea pig, Well, let's send a human up there and see what it is. We don't need, see, it's just like the UFO things, back a few years ago, everybody said, well, it's from another planet, and they're thinking like lower evolved humans think, oh, they want to come and get our water, or they want to come and get, no, those UFOs you see, think about it. They're drones. They're drones from maybe another intelligent place on this, in this universe, that wanted to explore, gee, that little planet looks interesting. Why don't we send a couple of drones over there and check it out? Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
So when you say that weed or anything will put you closer to God, you can't get closer to God than what you are now. Mm-hmm. In your mind. Yeah. Because that's, don't forget, God created our mind. Yeah. And he created our mind like a computer. You hand the computer to to an old guy like me, maybe a half of 1% will be used. maybe. but the knowledge is all there.
Yeah.
It's all there. And basically all you have to do nowadays is plug things in, get power for it. I remember really, really clearly about wanting an electric car, because I felt back, 20 years ago, that's we were doing everything wrong with the gas car. What we wanted to do, reverse it. Instead of having a big, a little battery providing electrical impulses for the big gas motor, I thought you should have a little gas motor providing power to the big battery. And I was right. And Toyota said, yeah, you're right, Tom. And they went and made the things. But it was just one step toward the pure battery car. We're getting so close to energy with a battery that size that will power us everywhere we go. We have that ability. And so what are we going to do with our time? People are afraid of AI, artificial intelligence. What are we going to do with our time? You know what we're going to do with our time? We're going to study. We're going to make the brain get fuller with more knowledge. And one of the things that we're learning is how to get along with people. Because we finally learned, at least this generation has learned, that wars don't solve anything. What they do, wars will create the need to find better ways to kill people. But then at the same time, they find better ways to keep people alive. And so we're always in a balance. We're always in, and we're, no matter where you are, you're there because of a reason, and that's why you have to, the scriptures again say, how do you resolve disputes? Well, you have to resolve a dispute before you can communicate with God. And the way you do that is by forgiveness. And when you forgive, you understand why people are against vaccines, against masks, against, why they don't like Black people, or why they don't like white people, or why they don't like brown people. You understand their limitations. And when you understand a person's limitations, then you can feel empathy toward them. And then when they mess up or do something, like I got a little granddaughter now that's learning how to walk.
Oh, thanks.
And you could see her development, but she falls and she takes these funny steps, and but she's learning. She's learning, and we know that eventually she'll grow up to be probably a phenomenal dancer. But there's so many of us, that are just learning how to walk, in this environment. And if you check their background, you'll find out that the reason they're here is to learn what they're doing, exactly what they're doing, you see. And that's why you can't be judgmental. Because I remember one time when I first went to LA, the beach, it was a beach. I wanted to go to the beach so bad. I was reading all the muscle books, and they're always at the beach. And I wanted to go to the beach. And so, because I grew up in Canada. And so finally, we're at the beach. Oh, it's wonderful. And so I'm out in the water, and I'm playing in the water, and I see this guy, and he's bobbing up and down with his head in the water and his arms loose, I thought he's in trouble. And I looked around, and there's other people kind of ignoring this guy, including the lifeguard. And so I'm a Canadian right away. I said, oh, this guy's in trouble. I swam over there, and I grabbed him. I thought I was going to have to get him toward the beach. And it was like he was just doing that on purpose. He looked at me like, what are you doing? I said, oh, I thought you were in trouble. Take off, He used another word, but it was, hey, take off. I learned a big lesson that day, mind your own business.
That's good. I like that, Tony. That's really good. But I fully agree. I really do share a very, very similar philosophy on life that to do with God. And I've only recently this year been openly speaking to people and saying that I believe in God. I believe that there is a conscious element. I believe that our behavior causes a reciprocal relationship with the universe. And I think a lot of these scriptures are describing to us particular behaviors to embrace in order to fully reach that intuitive sense where you can hear God properly. And the more and more that you engage with certain behaviors that and I think this is where one of the conflicts arrive when it comes to the global cultural discussion of religion, is that they do a categorical breakdown of geography where they go, well, we believe this, or like Protestant Catholic, it's the same dynamic. It's just different regions of the planet, different landscapes. And I think if they just come down to, as you perfectly said, the basis of it really comes down to behavior and understanding that it's one unit of understanding, and it can. And I think the utility, I should say, that's most important for understanding what God is trying to say to you is intuition. I think intuition is largely disregarded as unimportant.
Yeah. Well, that's your gut feeling. You call it what you want. Gut feeling.
Yeah.
I had a premonition,
Yeah.
coincidence. You can call it whatever you want. But what it is, it's the spiritual world enacting with us. And by the way, I had another epiphany I'll share with you. I've always been going through this thing about eternity and about because we are eternal beings. Okay, they say, scientists say that every drop of water that was ever here on Earth in its inception is still here, right, in one form or another. And then I would take it, well, why would anything else be any different than water? Everything has been here in one form or another, and so we're in the middle of evolution. We're evolving, see. But I also learned something else too. What I learned in the physical world, every action there has a reaction. It's physics, one action will cause another action. You can't have one in the physical world. You can't have up without down. You have to have a down. And then there's a balance in the middle. You can't have left without right. Because if you just have left, then there's no need for right. And so left is just sort of out there without a partner. So one feeds off the other. And usually it's the opposites. When I say usually, up is up and down is down. Now in space, there's no such thing, because there's no left or right or anything. You're just out there. But in the physical world, no, I take it back. In space there is too, because there is energy in space. But I'm talking about, say, on Earth, it's very physical. One action causes another reaction. And then I realized that our universe is so vast. And when you, especially with the spaceship shots and that, or the Hubble spacecraft, with the pictures coming back, which I love, by the way, I just eat them up, because all I see when I see those galaxies, I see violence and chaos and energy and just heat unimaginable. Because you can't have gold without heating iron so hot that it turns into gold. It's all about heat and action and physicality. You can feel these things. And so what is the opposite of everything? Nothing. The spiritual world really is nothing. The spiritual world is so small because there's nothing physical in the spiritual world. There's no need for space. There's no hunger. There's no physical. It's just there. And just there can be as small as a thought, a little burst of energy, like when you look at electricity or a sunbeam from the sun. That is real. That little particle is real. And it's a particle, and it's because it's a physical universe, it's one of a kind. There's that one sunbeam, when it comes out, there'll never be another one like it. And that's the way humans are. We're so individual that even if you're an identical twin, you'll still be different in every way.
Yeah.
In every way, you have your own lungs to breathe and everything else. And so we are really individuals. And we're here. Why are we here? Why are we conscious? Yeah. Because that's what life is. Life is consciousness.
Yeah.
Because if we're unconscious, we're not alive. We're nowhere. But when we're conscious, we're aware. We're aware of our physical universe. Yeah. So the opposite of spiritual universe is so tiny, so small that it doesn't really exist, except in our thoughts. You see how powerful our minds are? So if you just put your thought on God in all that you do, everything that you do, before you do anything, and you just automatically think of God first. Like I've been doing that. I wake up in the morning, like I sleep by myself now because I got medical issues, but I have my own bedroom, and it's like being in jail. I love it. Because I wake up, and my first thought automatically just goes to God. Not in that sort of trained way of where God is the most holy, but more like a father, our Father, where you have this peace and warmth. My brother passed away a couple of years ago, and we were so close, but yet so different. Yeah, we'd been in the orphanage together, and we'd been through our life together, But when he passed, I was more. I felt more sad. It was a profound sadness, but then literally minutes after he passed, I got a warm feeling that came. Something it came, and it really was my brother being happy. It was his joy. Yeah, it was his joy, because that's what happens when we transition. Yeah. We go back to the original state, and the original state of the spirit is love. It's just pure love.
It's interesting that, Tommy, because I've got my granddad. He passed a couple of years ago, and my mum was telling me that it just creates that example of unity between us all. So my gran was standing by his bedside. They didn't know he was going to pass on this day, and they were all standing there. My mum was standing there, and my aunties and uncles and stuff. And my gran left, and she went, right, I'm going to have to go and see my sister. And our sister was about a 20-minute drive away, so she left. And my mum's telling me this. So my mum sat down on the chair, and it was about 10 minutes later, my gran came back in the room. So she was driving along this road, and she just got this overwhelming sensation of, I need to return, I need to go back. And she came back in the room. My mum looked up at her and said, what are you doing back? And my gran just went, I'm not going anywhere. And she walked straight over to his bed and went, it's okay, Joe, on you go. And then he just died. So she like, there was this, how do you explain something like that?
That's it. You don't. You just observe it, and then you see how connected we are, and that's why when you meet people, yeah, you might break up with them, you might leave them or whatever, but you'll always be connected to them because there was a reason, and they're off taking another course. That's what I see. That's what I see, and that's what when I think about Bill Gates, what I said about his marriage and that, again, everything is ordained. There's no accidents. Everything's there for a reason, and they break up for a reason, but they'll never lose the love. That will always be there. It doesn't matter what you become. You're still the same kid that you were, that they knew you before. It doesn't matter. Carol Burnett used to have the best scene on her movies. It was she had a was it an uncle or a cousin or something that won the Nobel Peace Prize, that was a scientist, world renowned, and but every time he come to visit, no one paid attention to him. they only paid attention to the little puppy. They had a little, look at that little Dickens. and they would argue about the dumbest little things, and they got this Nobel Peace Prize scientist sitting there. So out of nothing. But it was just a perfect example of people, humans. And that's what we are. And that's why we got to celebrate who we are, because everything is here on earth for us. You know that? Everything. And when you think about life being eternal, which it is, that's what eternity means, always here, then we can afford to be happy. Nothing else. You can afford to be happy. Because what's there to be sad about? And I watch people all the time using other people's misery to kind of join in with them. Someone's having a bad, I feel so sorry for him. Or tragedy happens to people. They always say, I don't want this to happen to anybody else. I don't want anybody to go through what I just went through. Duh. You're all going to go through it. Because that's another thing. Eternal is that we're all going to take a shot at everything, because there's no reason why not. This is not our first rodeo or our last rodeo. It may feel like it, and maybe some people will say, I wish it was over, but no, it goes on. The beat goes on.
It's perfect, Tommy. Honestly, there's a wee boy in Scotland actually that was, I think he was from Glasgow, and he was about 4 years old, and from the age of about 4 and then 5, he kept telling his mum that he was like, I need to go home, I need to go home, I need to go back. And he kept describing this house. It was a white house with like a red roof and like a white gate, and he kept describing like plane journeys and all these, and like, they're shooting, and she didn't know what he was talking about. And it turned out that the description he gave was of a house away out on one of the Scottish Isles, and the individual that lived there was actually a pilot in the Second World War and had died in the war. So this wee boy was essentially describing like a reincarnated element, of this individual. Sure. He's only 4 years old. How would the wee boy be aware of this stuff,
Yeah. How do you just explain the Dalai Lama in Tibet? Knowing, coming back, reincarnated and coming back, that's one person, and we're all the same. Oh yeah. I know. I had a bad experience in a cave in one of my lives, because just the thought of being in a cave scares the shit out of me. And I know that I had done a lot of time in prison before too, because again, going to prison was like coming home. Oh yeah, right. This now I feel at home.
All right. So before you got done for the bongs and stuff, you'd already been in prison before that?
Well, I had hung with the bad crowd.
Right.
And so I knew I had a lesson all about prison. The prisons in the 50s in Canada, they were pretty brutal.
Right.
They had a silent system. You weren't allowed to talk from the time you walked in till the time you left, without permission. Right. And if you did, they had punishments like the strap, where they would bend you over a gymnast horse, pull your pants down, and hit you with a paddle that would make you pass out if you were lucky on the first hit. And you would get maybe up to 15 hits with that, maybe more. Yeah, I was, and I knew these guys that had done prison time. They actually, our house, we took in boarders, and for some reason that was, they made the best boarders, the ex-prisoners, because they were clean, neat, quiet. They never talked. they were, yeah, it was a great influence on my life. And so when I ended up in prison, it was like, this felt normal. I mean, I wasn't a criminal by no means, you know. It was just by accident or by design that I went to jail for bongs, you know. But I brought that attention with me, because I was really definitely a man of God. That they gave it another dimension, you know, because when I was in there, I turned a good number of people onto the I Ching, you know, onto the spirituality.
I actually have the I Ching right here, Tommy. This here, that's that's the I Ching.
Yes.
Honestly, that is my counsel.
Yeah. But it's called the E.
Is it the E?
They pronounce I like E.
Okay.
It's a Chinese pronunciation.
E. Right, good.
So it's the I Ching.
I Ching. Okay, I've been mispronouncing it this whole time.
no, I'm part Scottish. So and I'm all Canadian.
Good man.
So my pronunciation. I was in Paris, France for a couple of years, and I would piss off the locals so bad because of my ignorance.
So what do you make what do you make of the I Ching? Like, because obviously you use it as a practical guide. I mean, what would you, if you were to give somebody a breakdown of what the I Ching is, how would you describe it?
Book of changes. That's what they call it. The only thing constant in the universe is change. And so what the I Ching, what the guy did, very brilliant Chinese guy come up with this one, you know, it was heads or tails. And so what you do, heads or tails, you're allowing the spirit world into being able to affect the answers. Yeah. The Ouija board's another way of doing it too. But the I Ching, what the guy did was so brilliant, is that he wrote down things. He would make a file of what happened when this combination come up or when this combination come up. It was communicating really with the spirit world by means of heads or tails. And to this day, it is so uncannily accurate. Yeah. That it freaked me out. First time I ever did it, a friend of mine, a guitar player, beautiful guitar player. Again, everything ordained. Yeah. You know, I went back to I got fired, went back to Vancouver, tried to figure out what I wanted to do. But in the meantime, I kept being taken into these improvisational nightclubs, you know, just like, you know, be walking by and go, I want to see what this is, you know, intuition, boom, I'm pulled into all these places of learning, all because the I Ching kind of put me on the spiritual path. And then once I got on that spiritual path, you know, there's a saying in Christianity, you know, the prayer, ask and you shall receive. Yeah. Well, I would ask, what else? What else you got? You know, come on. And then, boom, I would be handed these different books. I Ching happened to be one of them. There's another one called The Third Eye by T. Lobsang Rampa. And he was an Englishman that came back as a reincarnated Tibetan monk. But he came back as an Englishman. But he had once been a Tibetan monk. And so he had all the secrets of the Tibetan Book of the Dead and all that. And it's called The Third Eye, T. Lobsang Rampa. And then I got turned. Then again, I started praying for wisdom. That's a great prayer. And when you do that, that's all you have to say. Just, dear God, please give me wisdom. And then I learned to, ask for more. Give me more. And then one time I was in New York, walking down the street, going to the gym, had my gym bag. And all of a sudden, I swear to God, I felt a force turn me and head me toward a store, literally. Like I wanted to go that way, but my feet were taking me this way.
Yeah.
And I walk into the HarperCollins publishing house. Never been there before. It wasn't even a bookstore. It was like a publishing house with their books. And then I felt the force lead me over and literally take my hand and put it down and grab a book by Joel S. Goldsmith. Joel S. Goldsmith. And what I grabbed was his biography. And then as soon as I got his biography, then I started getting the Silence of Thunder, all these different Joel Goldsmith books. And what Joel was, he was around during the First World War. He was around when they sailed across the Atlantic. That was the only way you could do it. And he was a Jewish salesman, I guess. He was in the schmata business where he was selling buttons or accessories. But then he started going to the Christian Science church, Mary Baker Eddy, and he became a Christian Scientist, and he became a reader there. And then his father, he got a telegram saying that his father was dying, that he had to go back to England. And so then the Christian Scientist told him that your father doesn't need to die. You can save him. You can heal him. And so Joel thought about it. And when he finally got on the boat to England, his father met him at the dock. Yeah. Wasn't sick. He was very alive, lived a few more years. Joel found out that he had these healing abilities. And so then, and the only reason there's books about him is that his followers, he got followers, these ladies started following him and taping everything he said, and then they put him into books. And so Joel was always, it was a stream of consciousness. Right. And it filled up, I don't know how many books he's got, but they're all about why we're here and what to do while we're here. All these great things, what life really is, how much of life is really an illusion, and what is real. And he's the one that, then he turned me on to Emmett Fox. There's another one, write down Emmett Fox. And the amazing thing about these guys is that they're all Jews.
Of course.
and they all talked about Christianity.
Yeah.
They all explained, because Christianity is the worship of a Jewish rabbi.
Yeah.
That's what it is. They got him up on a cross and everything else, but he was a Jewish rabbi. He never was a Christian. And I hesitate to think what he would think about the Catholic Church, especially in the wake of all the pedophile stuff that's going on. Yeah. But these guys, they changed my life, starting with the Third Eye, because then all of a sudden I realized, how eternal we are. Because the Third Eye describes how we're connected to by this light, this white light, and we're connected to our what they call our overself, and our overself is also connected to other humans all around the world by the same light. And there's many of these entities all around in the universe. They live in between the spiritual world and the physical world. There are a connection. And so when you pray, this is who gets the message. Now, if it's done in, it's not done honorably, it'll be ignored. Oh, God, kill that guy for me. It'll be ignored. But if it's done with sincerity, it's a 911 call, then it'll be attended to. And a lot of times the answer isn't what we expect, but it's the one that we needed. And so when you realize, it's like learning the computer. It's like learning your phone. When you realize what this phone can do, you don't have to leave the house. We don't. Here we are. Because of our phone. And it's the same thing as when you realize the power. See, you have the power. We all individually have that power. Jesus said that, hey, everything I did, you can do. Mm-hmm. But you have to have your mind on God in order to do it. Because God really, if you look at it, God is our energy source. Okay. And so the more God you have in your system, the more energy that you have, spiritual energy, which is energy, knowledge, basically the same thing. See, now if you believe in the wrong things, now it's a false energy, and in fact it's no energy when it comes right down to it. Your belief in the opposite might be strong enough because it is being used, just like Trump is being used right now in America. And what I love about people being naive, that's what I learned. A lot of gurus, they got one thing in common. I noticed they all laugh because they know the secret. See, when you know the secret, then you no matter what anybody's going through, you kind of wait and you kind of smile because you know that the outcome is going to be not what everybody would like or not what everybody would expect, but it's what is really proper, So that's what you got to do. You're on the right track, and like, how do you share this without hurting people? You can't really. You can't. You can only talk to those that have ears.
Funny that actually, Tommy, because I think often people watch this and they'll be like, when you say if you ask for things in the wrong mentality, so if you ask for somebody to be hurt, and my brother, he's doing his PhD in chemistry, so he's very scientific. He doesn't regard this relative metaphysical conversation as important because you can't repeat it in the lab, so he's perfect to sharpen my internal beliefs of the universe because he's the opposing factor. And one of the things I've found is that I try and think about these metaphysical principles of praying in the terms of science. And I think when you pray for something in the positive sense, on a cellular basis, we are emitting a frequency at all times. And I believe that your thought pattern essentially defines the level of frequency that you emit. So when you're omitting something in the context of love and compassion, it gives a much more stronger magnetic resonance with the universe's fabric. And as it's been discovered, the universe is made of mathematics. This is just the reality of it. And our, as you've already mentioned, our cells and our biology is made up of the same matter. So you're essentially, through your conscious dynamic, you're able to manipulate your frequency based on your perspective of desire. And I think this is where a lot of people get incorrect, or they think it's wrong, because they're like, well, why does tragedy exist? If God was real, why would tragedy be here? And the way I see it is like, you wouldn't have hot without cold. I mean, you already mentioned it, Tommy, perfectly. It's like, we are all under the context of temperature, using that analogy. There is going to be tragedy, but there's also going to be euphoria and beauty. And I think by getting logged down in the fact that one end of that spectrum removes the ability to see the spectrum for what it truly is.
Yeah, exactly. No matter how you look at it, the answer is always the same. And what it is, eternity. We're just not repeating. We never repeat, but we're adding. Every time we're going in a spiral. Every time we come around, we're that much further ahead, and more ahead, and we're spiraling. We're all spiraling up, onward and upward with knowledge. See, it's with knowledge. Because once we have enough knowledge, back in the day, they called the flying carpet ride, magic carpet ride.
Right.
Well, that came from the Arabs, of course. They're the ones that discovered algebra. I won't say invented it, but they discovered it.
Yeah.
And so they were very evolved. They're like just the Tibetans. There's different isolated communities where they never had distraction, which is mainly war. And I realized what war is. You know what war is? War is a physical activity meant for people to understand sadness, understand loss, understand horror, understand beauty, or to appreciate life. This is what we can do with ourselves, because we're eternal beings. That's why the Japanese could commit harikari if it was slight, because they believed in reincarnation so much that they could just put a knife in their gut and go kill themselves and die, and then be reincarnated, because that's what we do. That's what happens with us. No matter how you feel about it, and no matter how happy you are, or how sad you are, no matter how evil you are, or no matter how good you are, we're all equal. Yeah. we all eventually going to die. Are we going to evolve? Of course we're going to evolve. And you never know. That's why you never know who you're dealing with when you're dealing with people, because everything is temporary. Like Trump, for instance. He's a good example. I explain Trump by saying that he's an actor. Yeah. And by nature, actors are liars. By profession. Yeah. By profession, they're not only liars, but they're the most convincing liars on the planet. Yeah. Actors. You can't believe a word they say because someone else wrote those words. Yeah. And then you see sometimes you get a glimpse of the real self, and it's not too pretty. Yeah. There's a handful of real, say socially connected, but for the most part, your ability to be able to memorize a lot of words and make it look convincing doesn't really give you much more than the ability to fool a lot of people. Yeah. And that's really what Trump is doing now, but am I worried or upset or mad? No, I'm enjoying the movie.
Yeah. I love it, Tommy. That is beautiful, man. Honestly, I take it you're going to have to get going.
Yeah, I do.
No problem at all. Well, let us say, Tommy, this has been an absolute pleasure, and like I say, your words on what you were saying earlier about the in the right place, the right time, and all that, it really means more than you know. It really does. I mean, you said as well about it being preordained. It's not an accident that you're giving me these books. These will have a profound impact on my life, I have no doubt. I found the I Ching in the boy's mum's house. And what was bizarre about it was that it was nearby me for years, and I picked it up 3 times, and on 3 occasions I thought, this is very complex, and I put it down, and it wasn't until this year, and then I picked it up, and I immediately understood it. It was very bizarre. I knew
you were ready.
Immediately. It was very unusual.
Yeah. It's not unusual. You were ready. When you looked at that writing, it was jumbled.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you looked at it, and then all of a sudden you understood it.
That's
you
right.
were ready. You're re- and that's why, by the way, talking to people that aren't at that level, to me, I call it proselytizing. I call it, it's like giving people directions to Disneyland for no reason. It's like stopping a person on the street and say, okay, here's what you do. You take the 405, you go down and you turn it there. And don't forget Mickey Mouse. When he comes in there, he's a gas, and Goofy. You'll love Goofy.
I'm sorry, man. I love that. I love it so much because I have experienced it. You become excited when you find these informations, and you feel like you can see life. I've done that. I've tried to tell people. Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
You can't. It's like the same as music. As you evolve with music, you get to the point where you can only talk to other people that are at that level and higher.
That's right.
See, because that's why people with me, they think that I'm a guitar player. I played with Motown. I wrote something. No, it was all an accident.
Yeah.
I'm a poet. A composer found my poetry. Said, "Hey, can I make a song of this?" He made it into a song. Bobby Taylor, this great R&B singer that wanted to find out what Canada was like. He sang it. Motown, they're the big record. It affected them. Everything affected. It was a message.
Yeah.
Does your mama know about me? But when it came back to me, it was like, yeah, I guess I did that. I wrote a poem. That's all I did.
Yeah.
Okay. I love you.
Well, thank you, Tommy.
Listen, I want to do this again because I want to hear your reaction to the books I turned you on to.
Definitely. Thanks to Tommy for giving me his time, and thanks to you for sticking around until the end of the video. I sincerely hope you enjoyed the content. I'll see you next time.